I'm Melissa.
And I'm Mike. I'm going to start
Welcome.
singing my part. And I'm Mike.
Oh, wait, it says a teleprompter is being shared with you. Are you sharing a teleprompter with me, Dad?
Yeah, I have your script on there. A teleprompter. That's kind of neat. Didn't know that existed, but
Yeah, shoot, you guys weren't supposed to know this is
yeah,
scripted.
right. We could be a lot more good at this if we used all the functions that were available to us.
We're just flying off the dome. Before
Yeah.
we get into this episode, I don't know, my allergies have been so bad. So if I'm like sniffing a lot and I sound really congested, it's because I am.
Yeah.
Like I can't breathe. And when it's funny because like I'll be in the car and I'm like, oh my God, I can't breathe. My nose is so stuffy. Oh my goodness. And then I get
Yeah.
out of the car and breathe in some of that fresh air and I clear up right away.
See? Yeah, that's February in Florida. I couldn't think what month it was for a second. Oh gosh.
Almost
Yeah,
March.
yeah, almost.
Okay, so today we are doing, I would say, one of the most like infamous unsolved child murders in probably
Murders,
like
yeah.
US history. I
Definitely,
think that's
definitely
like
one
definitely
of,
fair to
yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we're gonna be talking about JonBenét Ramsey. Um, there's a few things lately. I thought the reason I thought about doing this case was because there's a few like things that I have seen personally come out recently, like with the whole what's his name?
Ne I don't know.
The
Chris,
weird the weird guy that
no.
died in jail, that killed himself in jail. What's his name?
Oh, Epstein.
Yeah.
Jeffrey
There's a
Epstein, yeah.
lot of things I've seen
When you say he killed
connecting.
himself in jail, though, you got to do this because we don't know.
Oh man, we should talk about Epstein. I don't know if that's like
Yeah.
too controversial and it would get us like what is it?
Yeah.
Ghost hidden or whatever.
Yeah, something
We
like
have to
that.
just
Yeah,
we
I
have to
don't
see
know.
about that. Maybe I'll just talk about that'll be on our paid
Yeah.
podcast version.
Yeah, right.
Where you guys get to see the live after show stuff. That's when we're gonna be talking about Epstein. So if you really like us, show it.
That's right.
Um,
If you want to
but
know what I really think,
but yeah, I saw some things recently, like just about her, like connecting her to him, and like her
ugh.
dad apparently, and like cause like he had pictures framed of her in his house. Like you didn't see those photos? He literally had a framed Epstein. He had a framed photo
Oh,
of her. Oh yeah.
that's odd. That's odd because I mean, like, when she died, that was before you heard. Well, I guess no, that's
He
right
had
around the
even
time
sent
frame. Yeah, that's right around the time frame of like
he
when
even
weird stuff
sent
was going on with him.
And he had sent allegedly or whatever, her dad money, like right after she went missing or whatever.
Hmm.
He had sent her dad, Epstein sent JonBenét Ramsey's dad money.
Wow.
So who knows? I
I
don't know
mean,
about any of that, but
yeah, did they know each other or that's I now I have to look into that. Now
look
that will
into
be
it.
my after show homework. So
Yeah, no,
there we
look into
are.
it. It's very interesting. So,
Yeah.
yeah, seeing all that, hearing all the stuff about that, it was like, what? We should do an episode on JonBenét
Yeah.
Ramsey.
Well, you know what else is interesting with the Nancy Guthrie story? I actually saw John Ramsey on some of the news programs because they were talking to him. Not that there was that much similarity in the cases, but just because it was, a similar case where somebody went missing. In this case,
Overnight
not
and
quite the same.
ransom.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
do you want to
So,
do you want to start with the timeline?
yeah, sure. So, um, okay, so a little background context. I think that's also important. So, she was born August 6th, 1990. I didn't know she was born in 1990, actually. You know what? I never really even did like knew too much about this case until I started researching it myself. And I think that's very interesting. Like, she's Jay's age.
Right.
Um, Yeah, so she was born August 6th, 1990, to her dad, John Ramsey, and her mom, Patsy Ramsey. She had one brother, and she's from Boulder, Colorado. So she was also a child beauty pageant, and Yeah, the Ramsey family was wealthy and very well known in their community. I'm sure we've all seen like the famous photos of her where she's super dolled up and like very beauty pageant-esque with like the big hair and everything. Um,
Yeah, because I
so
remember there were people at the time that tried to make that like kind of part of the story, as if, you know, by doing that, they were somehow putting her at risk.
but I
Sorry, I
think
just,
yeah, but back then I think it's also important to mention that specifically back then, not as much I don't think now, but maybe that's just not my algorithm. But back then, beauty pageants were a big thing. Like
yeah,
they even
yeah.
had that was, a little bit later on, but there was even that show with like all the little girls in the beauty pageants and stuff. I don't know if they do too much of that now because,
Yeah.
people are really weird with like children being
Plus,
grown-ups, but
I think it got it got really kind of bad PR from some of those shows with the moms and how crazy they were
yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah, but back then, I don't think really her being in beauty pageants had much to do with it just because that was such a like thing back then.
Right, right,
You know
right.
what I mean? It wasn't, yeah. So this all happened also around Christmas. So December 25th, 1996. She was about 6 years old, I guess. So this night, the family had attended a Christmas party at one of their friends' houses, and then they returned home between 9:30 10 p.m. JonBenét reportedly fell asleep, and her mom said that she carried her to bed. There were also plans for the family to fly to Michigan the next morning on the 26th. However, at 5:52 a.m., her mom Patsy called 911. There JonBenét was missing. She was not in her bed, and there was a 2.5-page ransom note left there demanding $118,000. The note had said JonBenét was kidnapped by a quote small foreign faction. It's also important to note here that the 118,000 was weirdly the same amount as her dad John's bonus that year, his Christmas bonus,
Yeah.
which is a little, I don't know, I just think that's kind of strange. What a
Yeah, odd
random amount.
because it's not like it was an even amount. It's not like it was
Yeah.
200,000 or
Mhm. Even 120,000, like 118,000, and that's
yeah.
exactly how much he also got in his Christmas bonus.
Yeah, that is strange.
Um So the police ended up arriving. Officers conducted a very limited search of the home. Friends and a victim advocate were allowed inside, but that also contaminated the crime scene. I think it's interesting in a lot of these cases how there was one case I can't remember. Oh, it was the Jennifer Kesse case
Mhm.
where they didn't do a thorough search of her house then either, and then they just let anybody, like not anybody, but they let her family and people inside, and they pretty much used her home even back then as like their researching headquarters. But I don't know, I think that just really puts an unfortunate little bump in all of these cases
Sure.
because when somebody's missing and the last place they were was their home, that should be somewhere that you're scouring.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think there should be like, and maybe there are, and they just haven't been followed, but I think there should be some kind of standards in place for every time it's
Yeah.
a case like that, we lock it down, until we've done everything we need to do, because a similar thing has happened with the Nancy Guthrie case again, where
Yeah.
they release the scene like way too quickly, and where that can come into play is not just in being able to find evidence to help find them,
Yeah.
But if you're trying to convict, a contaminated crime scene can be the thing that ends up letting the person get off instead of being convicted. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yup.
exactly. So, the ransom note is also determined to have been written on paper from inside the house, which is also very strange.
Right.
Um, so at 1:05 p.m., the 26th, the same day, is when her body was discovered. John Ramsey searched the basement and found JonBenét in a small storage room. She was bound with duct tape over her mouth. A cord tied to a broken paintbrush handle was around her neck, and that is when John carried her upstairs, furthering disturbing the crime scene. So
Sure.
I think this is also where, for like, I don't know, pretty much forever, people have always thought it was the dad, because who else is going to request the exact same amount as your Christmas bonus? Again, that's,
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
just think
see.
that's weird. I just think that's
Yeah,
weird.
it is, but that's
It's on
also,
paper from inside the house.
well,
And
whoever did whatever they did to her was clearly inside the house. So the fact that it was on paper from inside the house, not that much of a coincidence. But I mean, there was, and I remember at the time everybody thought it was the dad. Everybody thought it was the dad, and I think
yeah.
then for a while they thought it was the brother too, right? The
Oh,
older
yeah.
brother. But
Yeah.
like none of the evidence then that they found like pointed to that. So
That's so crazy how she was found. Oh my gosh. Like,
yeah.
bound with duct tape. And it's called a garret. I just didn't know how to pronounce it, but that's what
Mm.
a cord tied to a broken paintbrush handle.
Ah,
Um, so the autopsy findings, her cause of death was asphyxiation by strangulation associated with head trauma. Awful.
right.
She had a skull fracture approximately 8.5 inches long, and there was evidence of prior sexual injury. This is where
Which is insane.
The Epstein, things
Yeah,
got a
so
little
that makes it
fishy.
very odd. Yeah.
She also had stomach contents that showed pineapple as her last known food. Fun fact. That's
Yeah.
on here.
Yeah, I saw that too, which I found odd that that's even like notated. Like, okay.
Okay. All right.
Like not
um,
necessarily relevant to the case, but thanks for noting that.
yeah, it's never listed if she was strangled first, or if the head injury came first, or when the sexual injury was, or any of that, but I would assume the head injury first. Um, so I guess, like, to me, what's interesting though, and I guess why so many people did associate it, I'm guessing, with family, is because why would you write a ransom note just to leave her in the basement? And apparently, they had said that earlier in the day when the police did search, that they did search the basement. I had read somewhere,
Mm.
and she wasn't there, only to later that day appear in the basement. I don't know.
That's odd. That if that's true, that's really odd.
And why would you write, again, a ransom note demanding a certain amount? To me, it kind of seems like a ransom note was written to try and make everyone assume that it wasn't a family member. Like, oh, no way. But I don't know why he would put his amount, his exact Christmas bonus amount. That part, I don't know. I don't know why I'm hanging on that, but that part's weird to me. Um, Speaking of the ransom note, so it was 2.5 pages long, which it says um, that's unusually lengthy for ransom notes, which also makes sense because even the Nancy Guthrie one, like, usually they're very short. It's usually saying, like, I want this amount by this date,
Right.
period. two and a
Right.
half pages long. Like, oh my goodness, I can't
Well,
even think of. I want
that's
to
it.
read it.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
What are
what do
you
you
saying in
write in
there?
a 2.5 page long ransom note?
Like, are you telling them about yourself as well in that ransom
Yeah,
note?
like,
It all started when my dad wasn't nice to me when I was younger,
yeah.
and then my mom never made me the cookies
Well,
that I
see,
wanted.
that's like like my mind, and maybe it's because I watch too many of like the CSI type shows, but my mind, because of the amount, would go to, because I know at one time they thought it might be a guy who was doing some work in their house and that kind of thing, and um, it's like the guy was in the house and heard him talking about how much his bonus was, and they'd only paid him $200 to paint the bathroom or something like that, and so he was angry about it, that kind of thing. But again, that's
Oh,
that's
mm.
like, that's me writing a CSI episode. That's not based
So
on any of the facts of the case.
okay, so here's what's weird to me about it. So it says it's 2.5 pages long, and it was written with Patsy, his wife's notepad and pen. It contained movie style phrases. Handwriting experts were divided on who it could have been, and Patsy could not be ruled out as the person who wrote it as well, based on her handwriting and the handwriting in the
that's
on the ransom note.
that's
Now,
interesting.
what's weird to me about it, 2.5 pages, like if you assume, about how long a notepad piece of paper is, 2.5 pages of that. If she went to bed around 10 p.m., like they got home, what did it say that they got home around 10? Yeah, they returned home around 9:30 or 10. So, assuming, around that same time, that's when JonBenét got carried to her room.
You're right.
Um, and then the 911 call was placed at 5:52 a.m. on the 26th. I don't I mean, I don't know what time everyone else went to sleep, but that's not that much time for I don't know why somebody who's breaking into the house in the middle of the
Hmm.
night to kidnap this little girl or do something to this little girl. I don't know. Usually when you're like breaking in someone's house and trying to kidnap somebody or do something or rob them or whatever, you're trying to make it real quick. Nobody is going to break into somebody's house and then take the notepad and paper from the mom and like wherever she keeps her notepad and paper, which again you'd have to find, which you're
Right.
that's giving you even more chance to get caught.
Right.
And then you're gonna sit there in this person's house and write 2.5 pages of a ransom note.
Yeah, that's it.
I
That's
don't
a really
think
good point.
you're gonna do that. I think you would write it before you go there, especially when you know it's Christmas night and everybody is home. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep. Yep.
That's a long time to sit there and write this note. Like, what, you're just sitting at the kitchen counter? Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. That's
Well,
setting yourself up. Plus, doing all that to the little girl as well. Like, that's
right.
a long time in the house. And then by 5:52 a.m., like,
Yeah.
you're just
And
gone. I don't
and
know.
and you're right. Like, the ransom note combined with the fact that the body was allegedly left in the basement make absolutely no sense. The ransom note might make sense if somebody took the body and dumped it somewhere else, because, well, then they think that, it gives a kind of some time for the person to get away or whatever. Um but but otherwise, yeah, just it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's too many theatrics for no reason. Because then
Right.
you're writing this ransom note demanding an amount, but the body's in the house. You're
Right.
not even going to
So
get
the
that
person's
amount.
not getting the ransom note, or ransom money, right?
Like, could have at least, I don't know, hit her off property or something. Like, I don't know. I just
Yeah.
think that's very weird. And then you left her body in the basement and snuck out as well. It's
Right.
just very weird. To me, it seems like the ransom note was written to kind of make them think that it was somebody else, but then the dad or whoever, the brother, who like whoever people think it is, they don't want to completely get caught like being seen outside of their house.
Right.
Yeah. But that's also the weird thing about like crime scenes when they're like a family member is potentially involved is it's hard to you can't fingerprint a crime scene where people live.
Right, exactly. And you can't, I mean, the interesting thing to me is that like the DNA that they found, because they found DNA under her fingernails and on her body that were from an unknown male. So it wasn't from anybody in the family,
Oh,
which makes that
really?
odd. Yeah. And the thing I have says that in 2008, which is like 10 years later, so that this is interesting to me, they the prosecutors officially cleared the Ramseys as suspects based on the DNA evidence. So it makes it more confusing because you're right. Like the easy explanation would be exactly that it was somebody in the house, and the ransom note was a cover up, and that. But and are there ways you can fake DNA? You know what I mean? Yeah, DNA from an unknown male was found under her fingernails and on her clothing. It did not match her immediate family. So, but is there a way, if you had, say, clothing from someone else, could you? I don't know. I don't know that you would be able to get the DNA off of that clothing under the fingernails. So I
No.
don't know if that
So,
makes any sense.
yeah, one of the theories I have is the intruder theory, which is an unknown person entering the home and killing her. And the points that support that is unidentified male DNA that was found in her underwear. There was also a possible basement window entry point, but the grand jury did not indict her parents for murder. So that also like makes people think like there was an intruder. But the problem with
Right.
that is that there was no clear sign of forced entry. Again, the ransom note written inside the house. Nobody's doing
Right.
that. And it's extremely risky behavior just for an intruder in general. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just you got to really know that family. I don't know. But, the DNA, the random DNA found it seemingly all over. Like if you're saying it's in her clothes, they're saying it's also in her underwear, under
Right.
her fingernails. I'm pretty sure you can only get it on your fingernails if you're like scratching somebody.
Yeah, yeah, which again, in a case where somebody was maybe being attacked, that always makes sense.
But could she have also just I don't know. I wonder how long DNA stays under your fingernails.
Yeah, that's a good question too. Yeah, that
Like
could have been a kid at school that, well, not that day because that was Christmas, but
she was just at but they were just at a family party the night
so,
before.
so there
So
you
what I'm
go.
saying is like maybe something happened to her that night before for all of that to,
Right,
you know what I
right.
mean?
Yep,
Um, like something could have happened at the party, which is
right,
completely unrelated to even her being murdered.
right.
Um, so there is also a theory that her mom did it, which is the first time I'm ever hearing this one. Um, the theory is that her mom killed her during a rage incident, possibly bedwetting related, and staged the scene. Um,
How do you stage that scene and make it look like she was assaulted, sexually assaulted though? That's
so, well, the supporting evidence for this is the handwriting similarities between her
right.
handwriting and the ransom note. The note written with her supplies, and then fibers consistent with her clothing were found on the duct tape.
Oh, wow.
But the thing is, like, I don't know. I would like to think we always say like criminals are dumb, but like I don't think that I think somebody doing something like that would be smarter than to use their own pen and paper to write
Yeah,
it.
well, I mean,
I would write with
it
like
could
my
also
left
have been a
hand.
panic thing though, right? I mean, like, that that happens, whatever happens, happened to her, and I don't know, and you're like, well, we got to make it look like this, and maybe they were all
Yeah.
in on it. Maybe he was in on it too. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing that makes it tough is that because I don't know how you stage that. How do you stage that? And you have DNA from some random person that they've never located.
Right. Um yeah, I don't know because they also say like even with the mom there's no clear motive. Like the even the bedwetting situation like that's just an assumption. There's no clear motive why she would do that to JonBenét.
Right.
Um there's also reports that the brother and the dad. Um okay, so in 1999 that's when the whole grand jury situation went on. How many years later is that? 1996, I said. So that's three
Yeah,
years
3 years.
later.
Yep.
So a Boulder grand jury voted to indict John and Patsy for child abuse resulting in her death. The DA declined to prosecute, citing insufficient evidence. And then um, this became public years later in 2013. Crazy.
Yeah.
And then in 2003 to 2008, touch DNA testing revealed an unknown male profile, and then in 2018, Boulder DA publicly cleared the Ramsey family based on DNA. However, some experts question the strength and interpretation of the DNA as well.
Interesting. So there
Yeah.
could be, so it could be that, in other words, it could be DNA that's related to the family and they just made determinations that it wasn't.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those situations where because I think when it's a family member involved like that, I think it's just very hard to connect the dots with things like that. Like it has
Right.
to just be so in your face. It's like that case that we did with the teacher, with the boyfriend and or the fiance, whatever he was. They live together, so anything they test, it's harder to connect him to that case. Like,
Right.
I think it's
Right.
the same
Because,
situation here. Like,
yeah,
they're saying
like,
it's not forced entry because he lived there and he's telling them he had to knock it down for X amount of reason.
yes.
Same situation. If he was a random stranger, it is forced entry now. And, I think it's kind
Right.
of like that same situation.
Yeah, and similarly, again, going back to the Nancy Guthrie case, they came out this week and said that the DNA that they found in the home that wasn't
Yeah.
hers belonged to people who like had a reason to be in the home, not necessarily
Right.
family members, I don't think, but people who had a reason to be in the home for whatever that means. Now, that also doesn't mean
Yeah.
that whoever it came from couldn't be involved because
Right.
you know, but they had a reason to be in the
Right.
home.
Exactly. So I think when cases like that happen, it's if you don't have enough solid evidence to connect it directly to that case, like even when it comes to the duct tape and her clothing fiber, the mom's clothing
Hmm.
fibers being with the duct tape, she can easily get it's an easy cop out to say, okay, I live there, it's my duct tape at the house, so what?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
of course my clothing fibers are on it. That's how I delint my sweaters. Like,
Right. Yeah.
next question.
Yeah.
Um, so this was so once the case became a national obsession, I think it still kind of is. Like, I think
Hmm.
a lot of people know the name JonBenét Ramsey.
Yeah,
Like,
there was a recent Netflix documentary on it too. In like
oh, really?
2024, I think it was. Yeah.
Oh, I should watch that. Yeah, it was compared to the O.J. Simpson trial. We should do that one too. I didn't know O.J. Simpson was dead. Did O.J. Simpson die?
Yeah, he died a couple of years ago. Yeah,
Had no idea. I
yeah,
found that out the other day. I was like, what? O.J.
yeah. We
Simpson
should we
died?
should do we should do that one sometime though. That was, I mean, I remember, you don't because it was
No.
before you were born, but I remember that case. In that case, I remember sitting in the office at work, and we had a TV in the office, and when they were announcing the verdict, everybody in the office was sitting in our conference room watching it on the verdict on TV. That's how
Yeah,
like crazy that case was.
with Kim Kardashian's dad.
Yeah.
So funny. Um, okay, so critical investigative mistakes. Some of these are fun to talk about because I always think it would be fun to be like a crime scene investigator, but I definitely think if I was, I would do a extremely better job than some of these cases. I think these cases become such like big phenomenons, not just because like it's a child who like something happened to, because unfortunately, um, stuff happens to children like that way
Mm-hmm.
more often than it ever should.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it becomes such a big deal when like I just feel like getting away with murder is something that I don't know how it happens.
Right.
So, like, when you have a case like this where something like that happens to a child, it's
Mm-hmm.
found in the home, and nobody is ever held accountable for it, I just think that that's really, really crazy,
It's
and I don't know
terrible.
how it
Yeah.
happens.
It's terrible. It's
Like,
terrible.
yeah. So, the
I
house,
just have an update on something you said though. Apparently the
what?
claims about JonBenét appearing in Jeffrey Epstein files in pictures in the false. Those are false. Those are not true claims. It's yeah, it's the crazy people, the crazy conspiracy theory people saying that. It's what I'm reading says it's false.
Okay. Well, I'll look into it later. We'll
That's
see.
according to the Sun.
Is the sun are they a,
I think it's like a tabloid magazine, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'll look into it more later. I swear I saw a photo though of her like on in a frame in his home. Like in it was in like I don't know.
But, AI being what it is, you can't trust anything.
Okay. Um okay, so the house was never secured as a crime scene, which is crazy because that's literally where she was found. And like that's also what's crazy to me is she was literally found before 2 p.m. that day.
Hmm.
So not even like 12 hours went by before she was found. So I don't know how it
Right.
wasn't properly secured prior to that as a
Right.
crime scene. I don't know how immediately when they showed up once the 911 call was made, I don't know how they didn't secure it as a crime scene. And if she's in the basement the whole time, how you didn't
Yeah.
find her like
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
It's like they just did a quick walkthrough like what? Um So friends were also allowed inside, and the body was reportedly moved. Um,
Right. Well, because you said the
the
dad
dad carried her
moved it from the
upstairs.
basement. Yeah.
What? I don't even know why
Yeah.
he thought he would think. Maybe he was just panicking. I don't know, but
Yeah. I mean, well, because with the situation being what it was, and the fact that she was, duct tape on her what mouth and had been strangled, like he had to, when he saw her, like, assuming that he had nothing to do with it, because that's the assumption I'm going under, he had to know that she was dead at that point, just by looking at her. So,
oh
you
yeah,
know,
crazy. So where it stands today, it's officially an unsolved murder case. Um, Boulder police state the investigation does remain open, which is interesting because it's like
hmm,
30 years old.
yeah,
It's like a 30-year-old case, I would say. Almost, yeah.
yeah.
Almost, yeah, 30 this year.
Yeah, it says they give annual updates and police emphasize ongoing investigation and new evidence, but no arrests.
John Ramsey has publicly pushed for genealogical DNA testing, similar to the method used in the capture of the Golden State Killer.
See, so
So
that
maybe
kind of
it's not
makes you
him.
think he didn't have anything because
Yeah.
if he, because the thing is, some of the stuff I read said that like, today's DNA technology is much better than it was back then, and that's how they're
Mm-hmm.
able to do like those things where they might not be able to find a link to the person who did its DNA, but they can find, somebody that it says, oh, well, this person would have been related to them, you know.
Yeah. Um,
So if it was him and it finds somebody who's related to him, it's going to point back to him.
yeah, it's kind of weird to me too because like even going through this case, it is such like a short, not that many details to it type of case. Like
Hmm.
there's not even really much of a timeline, especially like
Right.
all the other cases that we do, they have like a days long timeline. Like this to me is so strange. And maybe that's the mystery behind it because for it to how many cases do you really look into where the 911 call is made and, you know, 9
Yeah.
hours later, 8 9 hours later like you're finding a body
Right. Right.
and then nobody is found. I just think that's
Yeah.
so crazy. Do you ever think that they're going to find who did it?
I think you know what? I think if they're still looking into it, and I mean the thing is that the information I have is from 2025, so it's last year. They talk about this new DNA technology, but I would think that with that technology, if you're doing like the genealogical linking, like you would have. And I know nothing about that technology, so I don't know if it's time consuming or anything like that. But you would think if anything was going to come out of that, it would have already. I hate to say it, I don't think they will. I think if they were going
Yeah,
to, they would have based on the updated DNA, um, and
true.
I don't think they will. And now
Yeah.
tomorrow, we'll hear something on the news that they solved it. No,
Right.
I just don't. I think if it was going to happen, it probably would have happened early on. If it didn't happen early on and there was new technology used, it would have happened as soon as that new technology was used. And you know, it's it's sad. It's sad that somebody and it also gets to a point where because Patsy died in 2008 of cancer, I believe, and it gets to a point where whoever did this may already be dead. I'm not saying
Yeah.
Patsy. I'm saying,
Just in general, it's 30 years
yeah,
later.
yeah, 30 years later. It could be, a lot of times like with cases, they'll find somebody in prison that it's linked to, or somebody on their like deathbed, who was in prison will admit to something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's that way they do find who did it, but yeah, I mean, them finding without something like major coming out, I don't think so. It's 30 years.
Yeah, I agree. Um, who knows? I think it's definitely that's the mystery behind it, I think is what has had it be such a big phenomenon case because other than that there's not really much to it.
Yeah.
Um, the fact that there was no first entry, the fact that a ransom note. Now, with that being
See, I
said,
thought I had read that the screen in the basement to one of the windows had been cut or something like that. Thought I'd
yeah,
read that
but
back in the day.
I know they said like there was a window access, but even that, even if the screen was cut, I mean there was a ransom note left. They could have also staged like a cut screen or
Yeah,
something like
absolutely. That's true. That's true.
um because why would you cut the screen? Those screens are so easy to take out.
Right.
A window
That
screen.
that too. I think another interesting thing is talking about the recent stuff with the police. They say confirmed ongoing efforts and urged anyone with information to come forward. Anyone who has information on this case, if they were going to come forward, they would have done it, maybe 29 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody hasn't disclosed anything by now, they're not going to.
Yeah. Even the theory about like the brother I found out was only 9 years old.
Hmm.
So what I also think is crazy too is if it was somebody, it could have been someone who like got in the house, but with no forced entry, that's always weird because,
Right.
you know,
Right.
if you don't belong in there, there's going to be some sign of forced entry.
Right.
But then again, back in the day, people didn't lock their doors like they do now, so who knows?
That's true. That's also
But
true.
like that's how a lot of the murders happened. I forget what murderer it was, but it was like back in the day, and he literally would just like when he was a serial killer, and if like he would just go to people's houses, and if your door was locked or if your window was unlocked or open or whatever, like he would go in and he would kill them. A lot of it was like older people, but like yeah, if he went to your door and it was locked, he would just move on to the next person.
Right. Right.
And that was because so many people back in the day, like they did leave their doors unlocked or their windows unlocked or whatever. Nowadays we got security cameras, we got little things that tell me that beep when the window's opening, like the
Hmm.
back door is opening.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
hunkered down nowadays. But back then, like who's to say that the door just wasn't unlocked and they
Right.
just walked right in, that left a
Right.
ransom note to like throw off the case.
Right.
That also could be a possibility.
It could be. It could be that that's what I'm saying. It could be that they did that to give themselves more time to get away and go wherever they were going.
Uh-huh. Like throw off the case a little bit, but like she's still there. I don't have to worry about disposing her somewhere else and then them looking into cameras or security like footage from a I don't know, business nearby or whatever. You don't have to worry about witnesses. So that also could be a big possibility. But yeah, we will not know anytime soon, I'm guessing.
No, no, not unless somebody comes forward with evidence for the what's going on there?
Yeah.
For the police, because yeah, I mean it'd be great if new DNA technology was able to do something, but I don't know. Like I said, I think if that was the case in 2005 or 2025, it's 2026, not 2006. They would have already found it.
Well, I know a lot of times too with like DNA, if somebody's not in the system,
Right.
there's obviously no way to find their DNA.
Yeah.
So I know like some cases it has happened where like when they originally test the DNA, nobody did any crimes where they would even have their fingerprints or
Right.
their DNA on file or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then 10, 15 years later, they do something that,
Suddenly they show
gets
up.
them caught
Well,
and now they have it on file. So that happens sometimes too.
yeah, I think that's where the like genealogical DNA comes into play though, because people who went on 23andMe to see who they were,
Oh,
that DNA
yeah, that's right.
data has been able to be searched. I think when you did
Yeah,
those kind of things, you actually kind of signed away the rights for
yeah,
them to be able to do that. So that's why in a lot of these cases they've been able to search through that data to find people
yeah,
that are linked. So yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, this one's a sad one, like a lot of these. It's a sad, sad case. I remember it back in the day, but it's sad that they haven't, and even more so when you mention that she was born in '90, which you're right is the same year your brother was born, and to think, this little girl who will always be 6 years old, would be a grown woman today, probably with a family of her own. So
yeah,
sad stuff. Sad stuff.
yeah. Um, I guess the pro is that at least they were able to like find her body, and thankfully when
True.
they did find her body, it was barely decomposing.
Right.
Um, so they didn't have
Yeah.
to, obviously seeing her with duct tape on her mouth and in that condition is not something that you want to see,
Right.
but at least you're able to like bury her and put her to rest and all
Right.
that stuff
Right.
instead of her just
Yeah.
forever being missing. I think that's just so
That's got to be
terrible.
harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. At least, I mean, even though they haven't found who did it, you have some
Yeah.
closure because you know what happened. So,
Yeah. Exactly.
all right. Well, let us know if you were interested in this one. And I also comment if there's like a case that we haven't talked about yet that you think would be a good one to do on one of these, because yeah, we'd like to get ideas for some upcoming episodes. I have ideas for for some more that I want to talk about down the road too. So,
Yeah.
but if somebody has an idea, a suggestion, send it over.
Bye, everyone. See you Tuesday.